All right, ever have that feeling where you know you're safe, but your body is just screaming that you're in danger? Your logical brain is going, hey, it's just a crowded store, or it's just a work meeting, but your heart is absolutely hammering, your palms are sweating, and you've got that cold pit of dread in your stomach. It's this brutal, confusing, and totally exhausting war going on inside of you.
So, what is going on there? Why does it feel like our body is betraying our mind all the time? Well, that huge gap, that disconnect between what your thinking brain knows and what your feeling body experiences, that's not just some weird quirk. It's actually the hallmark of unresolved trauma. And to really get it, we need to dive into how our minds and bodies are wired to survive. So let's map out that journey together.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start by really exploring that mind-body disconnect. Then we'll get our nerd on and look at what's literally happening to your brain during trauma. From there, we'll see how the body itself actually holds on to these memories, which will lead us right into why just talking about it, well, it's often not enough. And then, the most important part, we'll lay out a path to healing, a path that starts from the body up and helps us reclaim all the parts of ourselves.
So let's kick things off with this civil war. It's a battle that is raging inside millions of people every single day. It's the logical, storytelling, thinking brain versus the ancient, instinctual, survival-driven body.
The legendary trauma researcher Bessel van der Kolk just hits the nail on the head with this. For decades, the main approach in therapy was to help people understand their problems, right? The idea was, if I just get why I feel this way, I can control it. But what his research showed is that trauma isn't really a problem of understanding, it's a problem with your body's alarm system. And when that deep primal alarm bell is ringing its head off, no amount of brilliant logical insight is going to shut it up. It's literally like trying to reason with a smoke alarm that's blaring.
And if you're thinking, oh, this is just for combat vets or something, think again. The huge CDC Kaiser study on adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, uncovered a silent epidemic. They surveyed over 17,000 people and found that a staggering 2/3 had at least one ACE. And we're not just talking about the really obvious stuff. We're talking about emotional neglect, a parent with a substance abuse problem, witnessing violence, all of it. So the takeaway here is pretty clear. This internal civil war isn't some rare thing. It's the quiet backdrop of millions of lives.
So what's actually going on inside our heads when that alarm goes off? Well, to find out, we have to go inside and look at the mechanics of a brain getting hijacked by trauma. And this is where it gets really interesting. So, there's a name for this hijacking. It's called an amygdala hijack. Deep in your brain, you have this little almond-shaped part called the amygdala. Its job is to be your brain's smoke detector, constantly scanning for threats. When it even thinks it senses danger, it does something dramatic. It screams fire and basically cuts the power to your prefrontal cortex. That's your sophisticated, logical thinking brain. Now, in a real survival situation, this is brilliant. You don't want to be debating the pros and cons when a bus is speeding towards you. You just want to jump out of the way. The problem is, after trauma, that smoke detector gets way too sensitive. It starts screaming fire over burnt toast, a weird look from your boss, a crowded room. Anything can set off that full-blown survival response.
This brain wiring leads to two completely different ways of processing the world. The first is top-down. This is your thinking brain trying to send calming messages down to your emotional survival brain. This is what most talk therapy relies on. It's you telling yourself, it's okay, I'm safe. But remember, during a trauma response, the thinking brain is offline, so those messages never get through. It's like trying to send an email to a computer that's been unplugged. The second path is bottom-up. This is the language the survival brain actually speaks. It's information that travels from your body, your breath, your posture, your gut, up to the brain. This is what body-based or somatic therapies use. It's all about using your body to send a signal of safety to the brain, letting that smoke detector know the fire is out.
And get this, as if your thinking brain going offline wasn't enough, brain scans have shown something else that's just wild. During a traumatic flashback, a part of the brain called Broca's area, your speech center, literally goes dark. It just powers down. This is the real neurological reason it can feel impossible to find the words to describe what happened. It's not a lack of courage. The part of your brain that makes sentences is temporarily out of service. It's why just asking someone to tell you what happened can feel so impossible and even damaging.
And this brings us right to the heart of it all. The body keeps the score. The brain might get fuzzy on the details, the speech center might check out, but the body remembers the feeling. And to understand this, we need to look at our nervous system through a framework called polyvagal theory, which we can picture as a three-runged survival ladder.
So just think of your nervous system as having three main gears, or rungs on a ladder. At the very top, you have the ventral vagal state. This is the good stuff. It's when you feel safe, connected, curious, calm. But if that smoke detector in your brain senses a threat, you drop down a rung into the sympathetic state. This is the gas pedal. This is fight or flight. Adrenaline floods your system, your heart races, you're mobilized and ready for action. This is the state of anxiety and anger. And if that threat feels way too big to fight, too fast to run from, your nervous system hits the emergency brake and drops to the bottom rung, the dorsal vagal state. This is shutdown, freeze, numbness, disconnection, collapse. It's the possum playing dead to survive.
Now, a healthy nervous system can climb up and down this ladder pretty flexibly and always come back to that top rung of safety. But here's the devastating part for trauma survivors. Their nervous system gets stuck on the lower rungs. It basically learns that the world isn't safe, so it spends its life bouncing between the high-alert anxiety of fight or flight and the hopeless shutdown of freeze, even when there's no real danger around. It's like living in a house where the fire alarm is constantly blaring, and your only option is to hide in a closet. It is completely exhausting, and it makes that top rung of safety and connection feel impossible to reach.
So let's connect all this back to therapy. Understanding this brain and body stuff finally explains that deep frustration so many people feel when they spend years in talk therapy. They understand their past better than anyone, but they're still getting hijacked by their body's reactions.
It all comes back to this one fundamental biological truth. You simply cannot logic your way out of a survival response. You can't have a nice, rational chat with a part of your brain that is 100% convinced a tiger is about to eat it. Your thinking brain has already left the building. The conversation you need to have isn't with your intellect, it's with your nervous system. And that conversation happens in a language that logic just doesn't speak.
This leads to a really powerful analogy for the problem. For deep trauma, trying to use talk therapy all by itself is like trying to put a roof on a house that has no foundation. The insights and the news stories you create, that's the roof. It's really important. But the foundation isn't an idea, it's a felt sense of safety in your own skin. And without that solid physical foundation, any beautiful roof you build is just going to collapse the next time a storm rolls through.
So, if the foundation is missing, how in the world do we build it? Well, this is where the whole story shifts from the problem to the solution. This is where we get into a really hopeful, scientifically backed approach called healing from the bottom up.
So bottom-up regulation is just the active process of building that missing foundation. It's about learning to listen to and talk to your body in its own language. This means using physical tools, like slowing down your breathing to send a calm signal to your brain, or mindfully moving to release stored tension. It's all about sending a powerful, undeniable message of safety up to that smoke detector in your brain. You're proving to your nervous system, through direct experience, that the threat is over. And only when that survival brain gets the all-clear signal can the thinking brain finally come back online and help make sense of it all. And this reveals a core secret to healing. Trauma, especially when we're at the bottom of that ladder in a freeze state, leaves us feeling helpless and immobilized. There's this classic, kind of heartbreaking old experiment with dogs who learned they couldn't escape a shock. Later, when they could easily escape, they didn't even try. They just laid down. They had learned helplessness. The only way they unlearned it was when researchers physically moved their legs and showed them they could get to safety. They had to feel the escape in their bodies. The opposite of feeling frozen is taking effective physical action. Healing needs these new felt experiences of power and choice in your own body.
And the good news is, there are some really powerful ways to create these experiences. Things like somatic experiencing, which helps you gently process stored trauma energy. Trauma-informed yoga, which helps you become friends with your body again. Brain spotting, which uses where you look to process deep memories. Or even things like dance. They're all designed to do one thing first. Build that foundation of safety in your nervous system, starting from the body.
Okay, so we're calming the body, the nervous system is learning what safety feels like, and the foundation is getting built. That's huge. But healing isn't just about calming down our physiology. It's also about understanding and making peace with all the different parts of our inner world, especially the parts that were created to protect us from our trauma.
A really revolutionary way to look at this is internal family systems, or IFS. IFS says that our minds are naturally made up of different subpersonalities, or parts. It's not a disorder, it's just how we're built. Trauma doesn't create these parts, it just forces them into extreme jobs. So you have young, vulnerable parts called exiles that hold all the pain and shame from the trauma. And to keep you from being overwhelmed by that pain, other parts step up to be protectors. These protectors might be your inner critic, your perfectionist, the angry part, or the part that numbs you out. Their intention is always to keep you safe, even if their methods are causing problems.
But here is the most beautiful, most hopeful part of this whole model.
IFS believes that underneath all of these fighting protectors and wounded exiles, every single one of us has a core self that is undamaged, whole, and wise. This self is the real you. It's not something you have to build, it's something you uncover. And this self is full of what they call the 8 C's, qualities like compassion, curiosity, calm, and confidence. The whole goal of this kind of healing is to help the protectors relax so that this calm, compassionate self can step up and lead the way.
Let's actually try a quick little exercise right now, just to feel the difference. Go ahead and take a breath. Now, I want you to imagine someone who kind of triggers you, a colleague, a family member. Picture them safely behind a thick pane of one-way glass. They can't see you, they can't hear you. Now, just notice what happens in your body. Do your shoulders tense up? Does your jaw clench? That physical reaction, that's a protector part activating. Now, in your mind, just acknowledge that part. Thank it for trying to protect you. And then gently ask it if it would be willing to just relax for a moment and reassure it that you are totally safe right here. As it agrees to relax, you might feel a little shift inside, a bit more space, a bit more calm. That is your core self coming forward. And from this calm, curious state, you can look at that same person without being completely hijacked. You're in the driver's seat now.
So, we'll leave you with this question. We're so often told that healing is a battle, right? A war against our anxiety, a war against our anger. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it entirely? What if healing isn't about fighting or fixing or getting rid of the parts of you that are struggling? What if instead it's a process of homecoming? A journey of finally, compassionately, welcoming all of your parts home, led by your calm, courageous, and core self. If this explainer reframed something for you, do us a huge favor and hit that like button. And make sure you subscribe for more deep dives just like this one. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one part you recognized in yourself today? Thanks for watching.